Hi, Jude. Sid Lowe. Welcome to Madrid. I wanted to ask you a little bit about this whole process. Obviously, you said on the face of it, it's very simple. It's Real Madrid. It's the biggest club in the world with the greatest history. I just wondered if there's been a kind of an analytical process in all of this as well. If you've looked at the way that they play, if you've thought about your fit within the team, whether there's been, if you like, a kind of a studying of Madrid as you take this process and indeed, obviously, as you now begin to train with them.
I'm a big fan, by the way. I used to do La Liga on Sky and all the channels in England, so I'm a big fan. But yeah, I've not just come here because of the size of the club. Obviously, it's huge. But when the guys pitched the I don't know how you say it. Yeah, the vision of the team. I was completely involved and I was all in. It's not just, oh, we're Real Madrid, we want you to come and join for us. That is enough for me, to be honest. But then the ideas they had were so good that it's just so exciting, and it's an opportunity that I thought I couldn't turn down, to be honest. The World Cup and at the national team camps, it's hard. All of them wanted to see me come back to England and play for their teams, which I really appreciate. But I like the idea of this being kind of out my comfort zone, if you like. Maybe would be an easier option to go back to England, my native country, and live there and play there in the Premier League. But it's just I couldn't turn down Real Madrid, really. The club's so big, as I've said already 100 times. But yeah, it just felt like the right move for me, and like I said before, it wasn't because the other clubs were bad or no, nothing like that. It was just because Real Madrid was where I wanted to be. For me, yeah, it's invaluable for my career, for my experience. The things I'll gain from, especially the two older lads, Modric and Kroos, will be unbelievable. Their knowledge of the game, the way they play it, their experience will be so great for me, and I'll just be like a sponge around them, really, trying to steal anything they've got. They'll probably be annoyed of me after the first week or so, but yeah, I can't wait to learn from those guys.
Luis and Jules still with us. What do you take from what you heard from Jude Bellingham there in his first press conference?
Continue to be impressed by this young man. I've said on record what he did as a 16-year-old going from Birmingham City to Dortmund was an amazing step. Bold step, you know, really, for any youngster going away from home, but particularly abroad, really with your career in mind. And I think what stood out for me there was it's about progression for him. It's about his career. It's not about taking the easy option. You know, we've talked a lot about Harry Kane on this show, about breaking records, wanting to stay at Tottenham and turning down big moves. You know, and maybe Kane will get his move at some point. I somehow doubt it. This guy seems to be the polar opposite. Here he is, you know, already a regular, you know, full-time first 11 England international. He's made this humongous move to Real Madrid. I don't think he'll be out of place or in awe or lacking confidence, because that's the kind of young man he is. And it's about how driven he is, how much he wants to achieve. As he said, he could have went back to England and family and friends and adulation, you know, on your doorstep. But it's about testing yourself. At 19 years old, he's making this, the second biggest move of his career, from Birmingham to Dortmund to Real Madrid, and he's not even 20 yet. And he's talking about progression and success. And boy, I think they've got themselves, you know, a decade's worth of a great midfielder here. And just by his actions alone, moving home and doing all he's done, I think tells you all you need to know about this young man.
It is really a big deal as well, isn't it, Luis, as Craig's saying, because obviously you don't turn down Real Madrid, but even hearing from your teammates and having the easier option of going back to your native country, Jude Bellingham at 19 years old has made a really big step here and taking on yet another challenge in yet another country.
Exactly, Kay, and we know the record for English players who arrive to other countries is not great, to be honest. Not all of them can adapt to a different competition, to the language, to the culture, and just see him so focused on what he has to do. Just starting from the way he dressed up, arrived, a black suit, all cool. It's something that I was very impressed. 19 years old, talking about the future, about trying to. He doesn't want to shine from now on. He wants to learn. He wants to improve. He wants to develop himself. You know, he's 19 and he's got an option of being one of the best midfielder in the history, because he's only 19. He's already has a price tag, amazing price tag, arriving to Real Madrid. So I just love the way, and I think love the way he talked, he expressed, and the way he's see himself for the future of Real Madrid. So I think he's going to make a huge impact in Real Madrid and a massive, massive impact to La Liga. I think he could be one of the best midfielders talking in the coming years, but much more for next year when Real Madrid needs to once again fight for La Liga in every single competition. Really, really impressed with him.
Luis, you obviously went the other way. You went from Spain to England. What type of a culture shock do you think this is going to be for him?
Not as big as I think that he felt when he moved from Birmingham to Germany. I think that he already learned that process. I think he already adapted to a very massive change when you are younger. It's kind of easier. When you are an adult, you are used to some stuff and you don't like to change that much. So, but when you're a kid, you kind of are like a sponge. You adapt very quick and you absorb everything is around you. And I think that him moving from England to Germany first, I think is going to help him to adapt. And much more when he comes with that spirit of wanting to learn more and to improve and to continue learning every single thing from Real Madrid. So I think he's going to adapt very quick. I think we're going to see the full flow of this player from the first game that we're going to see in pre-season. And again, I'm so glad that he arrived to La Liga because we're going to enjoy him every single weekend. And he's a player that we are not used to see because in Real Madrid, all the players have been players who can create from the back. We've seen Kroos, Modric, Tchouaméni, now Casemiro before. But they always been players who are very creative from the back. This is a player who likes to arrive from second line, who likes to arrive near the box to try to score. We've seen that he scored 14 goals last year. A massive and good number for a player who plays in the middle. So, again, I think it's a great move for him and a fantastic move from Real Madrid.
He's 3 years away from Birmingham, so I don't think they don't have doner kebabs in Germany, do they? Do you think, Shaq, do you think Sidlow, right? Sidlow, you know, big fan of yours, Sidlow is guaranteed slipped Jude Bellingham €100 in an envelope before that interview. It's the only thing I can think of. He's got to
I love
say
that you said that, though. And
Yeah,
it came from other people that we found out, because obviously Sid wasn't going to mention, really, that he said that. I'll put that out there. But he
Sid's not put that on Twitter yet?
No, it was everybody else who's done it.
That was a nice thing to say.
It was very nice.
It won't last, though, if Sid gives him a bit of stick.
Well, Sid might be...
Next time Sid's on this show, it'll be...
You were really impressed, though, Shaka, with the fact that he has taken on this new challenge.
Yeah. I mean, the more you see and the more you hear of Jude Bellingham, the more impressed you have to be. And this is away from the football field. As I'm hearing him speak, I'm reminding myself that we're talking about a 19-year-old who's just signed for the biggest club, arguably the biggest club in world football, for a price of over 100 million. And he's talking about keeping himself out of the comfort zone in an effort to learn the game. He's talking about having conversations with Luka Modric and Toni Kroos about this position. Here's a player who has the world at his feet, just about literally. And his focus is on what he can learn from Modric and Kroos. And I think that speaks volumes for him as a player, for him as a person, and for the player that Real Madrid have signed. Craig said they have a midfielder for the best part of a decade. Absolutely, yes. And just by his attitude towards the game, we know how good a player he is. His attitude to the game will keep him on top. I'm not sure I've felt this way or heard a 19-year-old speak about the game in the way that Jude Bellingham has.
He's got an edge to him as well, hasn't he? And I mean,
he does,
I mean, because there's been, and he might have to reel this in, particularly in Spain, where the pressure is cranked up. And you remember in Germany, basically at one point, and I think more than one occasion, basically accused a referee of cheating, you know. And so he seems like a very grounded young man, knows what he wants, he's got a vision of what he wants, but he's got that sort of edgy side to him as well, which just makes me believe, as well as his performances, that he's going to go into Real Madrid and he knows there's going to be some humps and bumps on the road, as there always is. Look at Tchouaméni and Camavinga. It's not always been easy, particularly for Tchouaméni. And you look at some of the greats that have played at Real Madrid in recent years, Benzema and Ronaldo and even Gareth Bale when he was in his pomp. They've all had the boos and the whistles. They've all had it. And it's how you cope with that. And he just seems to me a guy, a young man at that age who is going to be able to cope with the pressure of playing in Madrid, which is almost as important as the football aspect of it. Because if you go there and you buckle under the pressure, I don't care how talented you are, you're probably going to fail if you don't handle that. And to me, he seems like a young man who is absolutely going to be able to handle whatever's thrown at him.
So before we do get to the pressure around it and the pressure that comes with the price tag, we're just wondering, Jules, if now that Sid has his best friend in Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid and you no longer have Karim Benzema there, what's going to happen?
I know, that's a good question. I don't know, I need to find a new best friend over there. You know, maybe one of the other friends' boys, like Kamavinga or Chouameni or someone like that. But I'm happy for Sid to have a friend finally somewhere in Real Madrid, you know?
Yeah, he's found one. How long's he been in Madrid? And he's found a friend.
A long, long time.
Well, he was hovering around Dan Thomas for years, but that was more of an acquaintance.
Well, he went to Madrid when David Beckham went to Madrid.
Who did?
Sid Lowe.
Is that why Sid went to Madrid? Because that was the story?
Started, yeah. Yep. And then he never looked back. And now he's got best friends in high places, let's say. Let's talk about what Tony Kroos has had to say, though, because he's been quoted, because there's been a lot of talk about the pressure that comes with a price tag. He said, we also had someone who came for a lot of money and more or less let his career rest. It was a lot of money, and I think everyone would say, looking back, it wasn't a good signing, but let's be optimistic. This is about Eden Hazard.
Obviously.
Point is, what he's making is that big money players don't always translate to being big stars on the scene. Is this a bit of a warning shot, do you think, to Jude Bellingham, that you've come here now, you better live up to this price tag?
Well, if it is, I think it's a little naive in a sense, because the parallels are completely different. Here we have a young man with his whole career ahead of him who's clearly driven, still a teenager, has had terrific success up until now, certainly from a playing perspective, has openly spoken about his desire to go and test himself in this huge arena rather than go back into a comfort zone, compared to a guy who, by his own admission, Eden Hazard, wasn't the best of trainers when he was at Chelsea, when he was in his pomp, but managed to sort of supersede that with performance, who got his big move to Real Madrid at a different point of his career, and in some sense lost, I think, a lot of desire to push himself on to the next level. Because you need to take yourself to the next level when you go to Real Madrid as a player like Jude Bellingham, but particularly a player like Eden Hazard. You need to kick on. And by his own admission, even before the injuries, Eden Hazard was talking about coming back overweight and all the sort of things he was doing when he was 23, 24 and 25 that you can't get away with when you get closer to 30. And so I think the parallels for me are completely different. Here we have a very driven young guy with his career ahead of him, and here we had a guy who had all the adulation, had had a lot of success at Chelsea, had basically carried the team, who had made this huge move, big payday, and basically thought he could do what he was doing, you know, a year or two before, and that was going to work at Real Madrid. And clearly, it just did not. It was a disaster. So I think the parallels are absolutely a million miles apart.
I fully agree. I think, yes, those parallels are unwarranted. I'm not sure what Tony Kroos was getting at here. And just kind of given the fact that these comments came out certainly before Jude Bellingham's press conference. And when I first read them, it just felt a little salty, a little snidey from Tony Kroos, which I didn't expect. I don't know if because of the price tag and Bellingham's reputation coming out of the Bundesliga, he felt a little bit threatened. But then you hear Jude Bellingham's press conference, and he's saying that I'm here to learn from the likes of Tony Kroos and Luka Modric. And I just wonder how silly that made Kroos feel as a result, because while I understand, I guess, the overarching point, and that's a threat for any player at any price tag at any club, how you settle in, how you live up to expectation. I just thought it was poorly phrased, poorly timed.
Oh, Luis, could it just be a little bit of tough love from a player that knows he's going to be taking him under his wing?
Honestly, I don't think that he tried to make a point about only Bellingham. I think that he was talking in general, and it's totally true. Craig was making a point before about how important is mentally to be strong. And it's totally true that if you compare the two players, Hazard and Bellingham, they are totally different. One is a very strong mentally that we can see on his way of playing, in such a young age, on Bellingham. And the other one, Hazard, is full all of talent. It's just talent, amount of talent all the way around. But mentally, he's not as strong as we've seen in the last 2-3 years. But I think that Toni Kroos was making a point about big names arriving to clubs with big price tags that didn't work. And we had quite a few in the last 2-3 years. Griezmann arriving to Barcelona, didn't work. Coutinho arriving to Barcelona, didn't work. Joao Felix arriving to Atletico Madrid, didn't work. And of course, Hazard. So I don't think that he was just pointing. He was just making the point that, listen, he's arriving. We all going to receive him well. And I'm sure that he's going to treat him the way that he's done with the rest of the young players at Real Madrid. But definitely he's making the point that big names or young players arriving with big price tags, jersey of Real Madrid is quite heavy. You need to hold it very well. So I don't think that he was trying just to point Bellingham, but just to make it a point about a situation specifically.
Right, just on the other side of things, Jules, how's it been perceived in England? What's been the reaction? And has it been as big news over there as it has in Spain?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think people were very impressed by his press conference today. Just to conclude what the boys have said, this is something that doesn't happen in many countries. A big presentation like they do in Madrid, especially, where you have all the former players like Raúl, for example. You've got the whole club is there, the president, of course, a lot of the directors, the press are there. They're asking you questions. It could be quite daunting and quite intimidating, really. And I think he did so well, and certainly everything that I saw on television or the radio, the way they were talking about it, the articles around there were all a lot of praise for Jude Bellingham, the way he handled today, which was never going to be easy, because I think he realized that he now belongs to the biggest club in the world, the greatest club in the world. And it can't be easy when you come from little Birmingham and then you went to a quite little Dortmund, really, in terms of European standards. And now to the biggest club, it's not easy, and I think he did really well. And certainly, I think now a lot of people are excited to see how well he does and how quickly he adapts to the new team and the new culture, the new environment.
Yeah, very much looking forward to seeing him next season in La Liga.
Him and Mbappe.
Him and Mbappe, maybe. In other news...
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.